What's the wildest cheating story you've witnessed or that happened to you? I'll go first for this one. Not super crazy, but back in high school, my first girlfriend wanted a break. I obliged because I had no idea what I was doing or how any of this worked. Just didn't want to lose my first relationship. A couple days into the break, she went out to her dealer's house, got high, and had her first time with him in a one-night stand. I didn't learn about this until I pestered her into having a call to see if we still wanted to stay on a break up, or get back together. And she shamefully admitted to me what she'd done. Honestly, I don't really blame her anymore. I was kind of an emotional wreck at that point in my life. Still messed me up even more though for a while afterwards. My friend's mom was in a relationship with a guy for years, and they ended up getting engaged and due to marry. The guy was a senior director of a company for which he traveled every week abroad for business. Eventually, the guy had a heart attack, and when my friend's mom turned up at the hospital, his wife and 2 kids were there also. Turned out, he was already married with children and living a double life the whole time. When he went abroad for business, he was simply going back to his actual family. In rehab, 2 people were there for sex addiction. One a minister and the other a Jewish housewife. They left rehab together pretty early on. The woman divorced her husband, who sent her to rehab for the addiction, and married the guy she met in rehab. They are still married 10 years later and seem very happy. I knew a guy years ago that was a private investigator. Many times he was approached by a spouse who suspected their partner was cheating. He had a slam dunk strategy. He would suggest his client sign up for a course, whether a hobby thing or educational. The key was that the class would happen for a period of weeks, all on the same day of the week, and all at the same time of day. Then, while his client was in the class, he would follow the spouse. Caught them every time. Had a coworker who cheated on her live-in boyfriend. She would tell him she was going for a run, put on her shorts without anything underneath, and would meet up with her side piece in the apartment parking lot. So then, she would come back inside sweaty 30 minutes later and needed to shower, and so it all made sense to her boyfriend. He never questioned it. She was an awful human being. Whoa, the parking lot of the apartment? I'm assuming that their specific building didn't have a window that looked out to said parking lot, otherwise, that's an especially bold move on her part. Wow, quite the unabashed hedonist this one. A family friend's husband was having an affair for 20 plus years, and that woman knew the entire time about his family. He was at her ranch one time and bucked off a horse and broke his back. The affair partner called his wife to tell her and acted like everything about this situation was normal, and that the wife had no reason to be all upset at the affair. Some people really just have no shame. Guy lived and made a complete recovery, left his mistress and stayed with his wife since they were working on their relationship. He passed away a few years ago, and his wife found out that he never actually left his mistress, just lied. A friend of a friend found out that her husband was cheating when she got to the hospital to see her husband, who had just moments before been brought in by the ambulance after a serious car accident, only for the wife to be denied entry to his room because, as they said, his wife was already in the room with him. He had 2 simultaneous lives with 2 women, neither of which was aware of the other. I used to go to a comic shop, and the shop owner knew all the gossip in the area. Nice dude. He remembers all his regulars and asks about you if he hasn't seen you in a while just to check in on people. Lots of people in the area grew up with his shop, so he's got stories. Anyway, he told us this story from some years back about a regular who disappeared for a few months. Comes back one day, and shop owner asks, "Hey man, haven't seen you in a while." Basically asking him how he's been. The regular was like, I've been getting divorced. I had to move out. It was a whole thing." So naturally, the shop owner asks, "Why are you divorcing your wife?" Turns out it's because the regular caught his wife cheating. He had picked up a second part-time job as a pizza delivery man because he was trying to save to take his wife on her dream vacation. All the money he earned from that job was supposed to go into that vacation. He had been working this job for like 6 months. It was a whole secret. She didn't know he was doing that for her because he was trying to surprise her. He was the pizza delivery man at the motel she was cheating on him at. The dude she was cheating on him with answered the door with her right next to him. He apparently didn't even go back to the pizza place. He quit on the spot, went home, packed his stuff, and left town. A guy I went to school with had been in a relationship for a few years with a girl in the year below. He left home and bought the house right next door to his parents. One day, he came home and found his dad hanging out the back of his girlfriend. What happened then? What did Mom say? Come on, man, we need details. Well, the son kicked the crap out of his dad and told the mom, who filed for divorce. The girlfriend ended up with an even older guy last I knew. She was a strange one. Dad was an even stranger one. Imagine ruining your relationship with your wife and son over a one-time hookup. Very similar story to the last one, except the couple were living with the guy's dad. He comes home to find her and his dad on the kitchen table together, walks out, gets on a bus to move 600 miles away. And as far as I know, the dad and the girl are still together. I went to the local college, and I used to see them. They'd drive up, and then this 55-year-old man would pull her rolling backpack for her to class. Really a model of a dude I never want to be. Roommate was sleeping with his boss, who was married with a child. She would arrive at our house around 5:30 in the morning, having told her husband that she was off to the gym, and they would have an early morning shag, shower, and get ready to go off to work together. They would also do it at work in the bathrooms. On weekends, he would go do his food shopping, and she would coincide her food shopping, so they would walk around the store together doing their shopping. He came home one night and sat my other roommate and I down and told us that within the next 6 months, that she would be getting a divorce and they were going to have a kid together. Let's just say she's still married and he's got a new job. They were lawyers. So much for being fit and proper. Lawyers are notorious for leaving their significant others for co-workers. The job is insanely demanding and often forces you to work at all hours. It's hardly surprising that people fall for the people they're forced to spend all their time with. Just got home from deployment. On our anniversary trip with my now ex-wife to Vegas. We go to a couple of Cirque shows, play some poker, and get a fancy dinner. The whole anniversary, no expense spared experience. She passed out drunk, and her phone was blowing up with like 20 messages from an unsaved number. So I looked. They were all very romantic and explicit messages, with pictures. She had been texting him the whole night. Even while we were at dinner, she told him she wished he was there instead of me. She'd been messaging him for months, my whole deployment basically. Well, I dug deeper, started reading other messages. I found like 9 other affairs with both men and women. She was even a third in a throuple and caused the husband and wife to get divorced because she kept breaking the rules and getting with the husband without the wife there. I know a guy whose wife was cheating with his cousin, who was also married. This dude finds out and decides to have everyone over for supper. Halfway through supper, he looks his wife dead in the eyes and says, "I know you two are screwing," right in front of the affair partner and his wife. This thing blew up, and everyone got divorced, and the affair partners didn't stay together either. My dad cheated on my mom with a coworker. She suspected him of an affair, but didn't know for sure until he didn't come home one night. I remember walking into the kitchen the next morning and asking my mom where he was. I was only 10 or 11 at the time, and so she just said, "He didn't come home last night." So she called him at work, and he said he slept at a friend's because he had too much to drink. My mom called the friend's wife, and she confirmed that my dad was not there at all. And that's all my mom needed to know. It destroyed our family. My mom packed his stuff and left it by the door. She got hooked on prescription pills afterwards and tried to unalive herself. She only lived because I found her and called 911. After that, she just left, took off, dumped me and my sister with my dad, who was ill-equipped to raise 2 teenagers. He met some witch of a woman who was recently widowed. They got engaged, and before I knew it, I was living with her, and I had 6 stepbrothers and sisters. Things only got worse from there. I enlisted to get away from it all. The whole thing messed me and my sister up pretty bad. This one comes straight from the family tree. Long story short, my aunt married a dude who ended up screwing her daughter while she was at work and then divorced her and married the daughter, and ended up on Maury Povich for an episode of Is the Baby Mine? The 90s were a wild time. My guy, that's a family bush, not a family tree. Girl said she was approved for some class in another really faraway city after her grades in college were too good. The boyfriend paid all her travel expenses and gave her his credit card for the trip. When she arrives at the other city, she calls saying she won't come back and would live with this guy she met online and was chatting with for months. Boyfriend went crazy to cancel the credit card he gave her, found there was never any class, and she was almost expelled from college because her grades were terrible. She just traveled to meet the other guy, and still made her boyfriend pay all her expenses. This happened about 15 years ago. I lost contact with her, but I remember that she married the other guy. Had something similar happen to a friend of a friend. They decided that they'd be moving abroad. He's the breadwinner, and she's a teacher, so she goes over first to find the house, etc., and he obviously pays for everything. A few months later, he quits his job, sells everything that is left, gets on the plane and flies halfway across the world to his wife. Within hours of landing, she tells him she's met someone and wants a divorce. Some people really do just have no sense of human decency, do they? This is my wild story. My ex-husband and I had been together for a total of 14 years, married for about a year and a half. We are only 32 and 33 years old. Last August, my dad was dying, and my husband wasn't there for me. In fact, he said that I was making him an emotional punching bag when I dared express disdain for him spending the entire day with his friends. My dad died 3 days later, and every day after that, my husband showed me that he wasn't a supportive husband. We agreed to separate at the beginning of this year, and I moved into my best friend's condo. About 2 months later, he texted me that one of our best friends, who was a bridesmaid at our wedding, had to be involuntarily admitted to the hospital, and the story was a whole mess. My best friends and I met up with my now ex a week or so later so that he could tell us the story. He told us that she had left end-of-life notes for her mom, her husband, and also my ex, and it turned out that she was in love with him and couldn't be with him, so she wanted to unalive herself. My ex told a long story of how he helped find her and got her involuntarily admitted, painting himself as a hero. A month later, I decided that this girl and I could still be friends despite her being in love with my ex, someone I was no longer in love with myself. I invited her out for sushi, and she agreed. At first, things were normal. She said that she was with another guy, and things were fine. I finally told her I knew about the hospitalization and that she was in love with my ex. She got angry and told me the real story. She and my ex had started sleeping together a month-ish after our wedding. She went on for a while about the emotional connection, then told me how they stopped for a bit, started again, and that they didn't use protection, and she got pregnant. She told her now boyfriend that they were pregnant, and together they planned to announce to their families on Christmas about the baby. Sadly, my ex didn't want the baby, told her that he didn't care about her, etc., etc., so she decided to have a medical intervention. She showed her boyfriend a toilet full of blood and told him that she'd miscarried. Her mental health declined from there, and she became a risk to herself in January of this year. Her boyfriend had no clue about any of this until the day that she attempted on herself. I was livid after hearing the whole story. In April, May of this year, my ex and I got divorced, and I got diagnosed with cancer. I'm currently going through chemo, and I'm writing from the hospital bed as I'm being admitted for an infection, and my white blood cell counts are too low to leave. This past year has just been the worst. As someone whose parent had to undergo chemo, I've seen how gruesome of a process that can be and how awful it is to one's mental health. I really hope this girl's able to come out of it and live a happy, healthy life, find someone good for her. And I hope that her ex and that friend of hers both get what's f***ing coming to them. My aunt's Mormon husband divorced her for another woman at their church. That woman divorced her husband, and they both went before the bishops and swore they had never slept together before their marriage, so that it could be in good standing. You expect me to believe a man divorced his wife and the mother of his 3 kids for a woman he's never slept with? Sure. My high school sweetheart and I went off to college, different schools. While I was visiting, I was walking around the house to the front door. Window was open, and I overhear her talking to another high school guy friend of mine that is currently in college with her about how she doesn't know how to tell me that she cheated. I guess he caught her with a friend of his and was forcing her to fess up to him before he did. So that broke us up, needless to say. Later, she begged me to forgive her. About 3 months after, I relented and had her visit me at my college. We went out that night, food, drinks, and finally a house party. Before we were about to leave, I went up to a friend's room to grab a bag of cannabis from him. 15 minutes later, I come down, go out to the porch, look to the left, and there she is making out with some random guy we hadn't even met before. She literally met him 2 minutes after I went upstairs. She cried all night. I was crying with laughter that she had so little self-control. I ended up having her sleep on the couch, and she went home before I woke up. Haven't spoken since. That was about 20 years ago. I was 32. She was cheating on me with her ex for like 6 months before I found out. The way I found out was she called me crying hysterically, saying she accidentally ran him over. I got all of her belongings from the police and find all the evidence on her laptop of them screwing. An argument over me is what caused the running over. Police ruled it accidental, and she brags about it at bars to this day. She also ended up later having a kid with a guy that had the same name as me and spells it the exact same too. The way she ran him over was interesting, I guess, too. Purposely at first, but he was alive under the tire, and she had a sudden change of heart. So she jacked up the car using the car jack, but it slipped as she was attempting to pull him out. It was raining and the road was quite slippery, and the car tire then crushed him further, finishing him off. So technically, he got ran over twice in the same night. Are we just not gonna address the fact that she lashed out to the point of running this guy down because of an argument over the guy she was cheating on, and then proceeded to date someone with the same name? Like, was she just not over this guy that she was cheating on, or was she just, like, was something not right upstairs that she had like a weird disconnect between things? I'm struggling to comprehend the sheer magnitude of the waving red flag at full mast hanging off this girl's back. My God! I talked about a dude dodging a cannonball in the last video that I read stories like this. But this guy dodged a freaking nuke, like a genuine Harley Quinn character. On a side note, because I've been watching the new Fallout series between recordings, it's great. If you have Amazon Prime, I highly suggest it. I've just started it, and so far, I think they've done a really good job, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the rest of Season 1. If you ever played Fallout, which for me, New Vegas was my coping game through high school, you've got to watch this series, because they did such a good job of hitting the Fallout 4 aesthetic right on the head. I'm by no means sponsored. I just want more people to view it so that I can get a Season 2. Either way, let's hop into the rapid fire segment for stories too short to make a full entry out of, but too good to be left out. And these ones are a little bit longer than normal. My ex-wife pretended to be admitted to a mental health ward for long-term treatment, while actually staying with her new man and cheating on me. In a small town, the husband kept telling people he had an open marriage. Finally, someone asked his wife about it, and she was unaware of this new arrangement. Friend's mom was cheating for 7 years. Only got caught because her side boo broke up with her, which led her to go to her husband for emotional support. She told him the whole thing and expected him not to be mad. I dated a girl in college who I discovered was still sleeping with an ex, but she didn't consider it cheating because we were having P and V, and she was only letting her ex go from behind, so it didn't count. A guy cheated on me because, quote, my libido was too high for him. I had a significant other who cheated on me with 2 strangers the day before my birthday. She was on a whitewater rafting trip with her girlfriends, and she screwed both raft guides. My best friend's dad invited his coworkers and mistress to his home and let his unknowing wife cook for her and all of them. The wife eventually finds out, so the husband throws her out, divorces her, and marries the mistress. He was a pastor. So guys, that's it for today. I hope you all enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did. I'm ReddList. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.